so still working for Victory Mission, managing the kitchen. Now I have 2 to 3 guys that are going through the program in the kitchen with me. And so being able to disciple them and mentor them, and, the guy that's taking over when I leave in August, he went through the program. And so it's kind of just this cool, natural progression of guys coming in the program and then kind of following in my footsteps. And the plan with the business is to use those guys in the business so that they can see, hey, there's a career in this, and you can take this to the next level.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining us for another episode of At Home with Emily, a podcast about creating a life you love. I'm your host, Emily Wood, and you are joining us on the tail end of a 4-part special series about second chances. And we have had some incredible guests on with us today. We have the one and only Dyllan Dale with us. If you know the name, he is a well-known chef here in town. He is an inspiration to so many. And at one point not too long ago, I think it'd be fair to say you were fighting for your life.
Yes.
Based on everything that you have described to me. And God saw fit to bring you through and create an incredible story along the way.
Yes.
And I think that now, looking back at that time, I'm sure not a day goes by that you don't feel grateful for how far you have come.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so Victory Mission was the organization that you ultimately found that helped set you on a new path. What was your life like at that time when you came across Victory Mission?
So at that point, I reached my ends for here, and I decided to just up and move to Oregon. So I was actually out in Oregon, and I had a kind of this moment of clarification from God, but at the time I didn't know it was God. And he said, "Hey, basically you've got to stop getting high." And then a week later, he said, "You've got to go back home." And so that's when my mom told me about Victory Mission. So I was homeless, in addiction, out in Oregon.
What does that life look like for those who? I think it's easy to turn your eyes the other way when you see someone on the side of the road, or you see what looks to be maybe part of a homeless camp. What is that lifestyle like on a daily basis?
It can be so many things. It can be chaos. It can be boredom because you have nothing to do. It can be filled with so many things, mental illness, so extreme, and I dealt with a lot of extreme anxiety, really bad depression, and really hopeless. Like you feel like you will never come out of it. You feel like there's no, like your situation is so unique that there's no way I can get out of this. Maybe other people can, but I feel like I can't get out of this. So just hopelessness all the time.
Do you think part of that stems from just how unstable it feels not to have, a consistent place to rest your head and get out of the elements and, a place to call home?
Yes, but I think a lot of it is like you don't feel valued. You feel like you're the lowest in society, and if anybody does pay any mind to you, that it's just out of kind of this, I'm just going to do my good deed for the day. And so you don't feel like this personal relationship with anybody. And so, I think a lot of it, like you just don't feel valued. You don't feel worthy to get out of that, How
do you survive day to day?
However you can. There's, you find places that are serving meals, or you steal your food, or you do what you can for money, whether that's holding a sign or, whatever.
So you've been on a street side.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Did you ever have a point where you're standing there and you're thinking, how did I get here?
Yes and no, because like situations would happen. When I went out to Oregon, the plan was I'm going to go live with this guy I know and a friend of mine, and then I get there and I get no response from him. So I'm homeless. So yeah, there's that part where it's like, man, how did this happen? But at the same time, like I knew, like deep down inside that it's what got you there is the sum of your bad decisions. And it's not that way for everybody. Like I've met guys that, they're going through a divorce and they don't have a place to go. They can't afford a hotel, and so they come to Victory Mission and stay. And so there's different stories, but, for me, it's like, yeah, I'm here because this is the sum of my bad decisions,
Let's peel that back a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Some of bad decisions. What do you mean by that?
Not getting out of addiction, not getting help, just not doing the things that I knew I needed to do.
You struggled with addiction a long time.
Yeah. I on and off for about 15 years.
Big chunk of your life. I mean, you're a young guy.
Yeah.
And so was that something that you started into in the teen years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pretty early on in my teen years, And
it's just a matter of somebody at school introducing you?
It was just a friend of mine that like my parents, I didn't grow up around addiction. My parents weren't alcoholics, anything like that, but a friend of mine parents did. And so like going over to his house, eventually it was like, hey, we've got this, we're going to try it out. And it's like you want to be one of them. Like you don't want to, oh no, there's 7 people here and I'm going to be one guy that doesn't, like you kind of want to feel accepted, I guess, in a way. So that's how I fell into it. And then, I started dealing with anxiety and some depression pretty early on. And then my parents divorced. I think to cope with that, I used addiction,
And that helped temporarily.
Yes, very temporary.
With what you were feeling.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, and here's the other thing too is, and I know that it's legal and everything like that. Like my issue was smoking weed. And it's different for everybody, but it was such an issue for me. The thing is that I wanted to say that it was helping with my anxiety, but the reality was it was making my anxiety worse. And you just like get stuck in this loop of, well, my anxiety is really bad, so I need to smoke some more weed, and then you get more anxiety, and it's just like, and then it also made my depression worse, and as I got older, like, wouldn't go see my kids because I was too stoned. I'd quit jobs because I would rather smoke weed all day. Like, yeah, it's a really bad addiction for me.
And so for you, it was a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
What type of work were you doing in those years?
I've always worked in kitchens. From pretty early on, like 11 or 12, I knew I wanted to be a chef, but really addiction takes away your motivation to do those things.
Yes.
Like even though I was cooking in a kitchen, like to have that motivation to push myself to be something great, like just gets lost in addiction,
And suddenly you lose sight of what you wanted to do and why you're doing what you want to do.
Absolutely.
And took away from the passion that you had.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And so through all these years, were you staying in touch with your family?
Yes. Yeah. I always stayed in touch with my family, and, my family always cared about me. They're pretty firm like my dad is just a really firm person, and so they never, what's the word I'm looking for? Like contributed or enabled me. Yes, thank you. They never enabled me in my addiction, but they were always there. Like they would always pick up the phone, and they were always there in some type of way. So
did your mom express worry?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, looking back at it now, like being a parent, you're worried that like you're gonna get a phone call that your child is dead somewhere, for one reason or another. Because you don't know where they're at, you don't know who they're with, what they're doing, and so yeah, there's a lot of worry there.
And so thinking back on that and how that affected your family,
yeah,
I'm sure that's hard for you.
Yeah, but maybe the first year, one thing about recovery is that you've got to be able to acknowledge the things you were doing that were affecting the people around you, but you have to be able to move forward and say, well, the more important thing for me to do is to show them that they don't have to worry anymore. That's the more important thing for me to think about,
How did your life change once you came to Victory Mission?
I think probably the most important way that it changed was like 3 weeks in, I was praying out in the prayer garden by myself, and I was kind of in this moment, because I was still dealing with a lot of just mental health issues, and I was praying and I was saying, basically, God, I'm so overwhelmed by the anxiety and depression and thoughts of suicide and stuff like that, that God, if you don't take it away, that's it. Like I'm gonna, to put it plainly, commit suicide and just be done. Like I cannot go on anymore. And as I'm praying in that moment, God took all that away. He took the anxiety away. He took the depression away, just like that. And that was my moment, the moment of my salvation, because that's when I knew without a doubt God was real. Because in the past, even though I'd grown up around a church and even, said the sinner's prayer, I don't know how many times, like I never truly believed in my heart. And when you look at scripture, nowhere does it say a prayer and you're saved. What scripture says is for those who believe. It comes down to belief, when you believe that Jesus is the Son of God. And so in that moment, like when God took that away and I had no explanation and I felt the presence of God, that's when I believed in my heart that Jesus is real and God is real. And so that was the moment of my salvation. And then I could work, because I wasn't dealing with that anxiety and severe mental illness, like I could work through just a lot of issues in my life without the cloudiness in my mind, And so that was the most important part of Victory Mission for me.
You look back on that point in time as a turning point for your whole life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And so that's when you feel like you really got your second chance.
Yes. Yeah. That's when, I just started to really rebuild my life. Learn, as my dad puts it, learn how to be a responsible adult.
That sounds like a dad.
At 27 years old with 2 children, that's when I was able to do that. So.
And you're grateful for it.
Yeah.
And so what was the programming like that you went through from that point forward? Was there a lot of like talk therapy and counseling type stuff, job training? What did you do?
All of it. All of it. The cool thing about Victory Mission is Victory Mission does not just address one area of your life. It's not just,
Get
a job and go to church.
It's all of it.
It's all of it. It's, like you said, there's counseling, but there's also like learning how to be financially responsible. There's learning how to be relationally responsible, like being a good father, maintaining good relationships with your family and friends. There's job training. There's so much that they kind of just bring it all in, and for your first 3 months of being there, like you don't work, you don't have a phone, nothing, because you have to take that time to learn how to maintain your life. If a lot of people lose their recovery because they go straight from the streets or prison or whatever, straight into, well, you need to get a job, maintain your finances, straight into it. And it's like,
that's a lot.
It's a lot for people because
it's huge. 180.
They don't even know how
to
to be social with people, and so you've got to take that time to learn how to do those things.
So you feel like you got a lot of skills that you were lacking.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
And so, how did it come to be that you ended up being part of the team at Victory Mission?
Yeah, so they've got it's a workforce development program, and it's basically job training through Victory Mission that you can kind of go many different ways. It just kind of depends on like what your calling is and what your skill set is. If you're good public speaking and, good spiritually with other people, like maybe being a chaplain apprentice, or maybe you want to go into the workforce at a warehouse. So you can go to our warehouse, learn to drive a forklift, stuff like that. There's like, you can work in the coffee department. Of course, for me, I went and worked in the kitchen. And
you felt right at home in there.
Yeah. It's like,
what is it that you like about that environment and that job?
That's an interesting question, because I think it's only within the past couple of years that I've really been able to recognize what it is. And for me, it's a creative outlet for me. Yep.
Oh, definitely.
It's a place that I can put something or make something with my hands that other people can see, and I can see that's like art, so.
And so did you have the idea or the goal in your mind that you wanted to start your own business?
No.
How did that come to be?
So after about 3 years of running the kitchen, so I've always been very nature minded, I've just always been fascinated by nature and everything it has to offer. I've always been kind of into foraging and stuff like that. And about 2 years, 2.5 years ago, probably more, I finally made the connection that I can combine my love for cooking and my love for nature and everything it has to offer, and I could be a foraging chef. But when that happened, like I know nobody that's doing it, right? And so I had kind of done some work with a guy out of St. Louis. His name is Rob Connolly, and so I was like, well, I wonder if he would mentor me. So I just messaged him, and it came about that, he accepted, and
That's amazing.
He mentored me, and eventually he said, hey, you should do a pop-up of your own. And I was like, okay. And so I did one, sold out every seat.
Where was your first one?
The mansion at Dale.
Okay.
Here in town.
That was a big step.
Yeah, it was really big because I just didn't have the confidence. I didn't think that I could
You're
do
really
it.
putting yourself out there when
Right.
You're making an event for people to come to.
Right, and charging them $100 to come.
Which seemed like a lot of money.
Yeah, so sold out of the first one, sold out of the second one, sold out of the third one.
And you're thinking, I'm onto something here.
Right. And so, but then I did a fourth one, and then the Missouri Department of Conservation Heritage Foundation got a hold of me and asked me to do 4 meals for them, like really exclusive meals. And so, yeah, then now I'm just running with it. So,
what do people think about it?
People are loving it. I try to make it an experience for them. It's all based around foraged foods and then game meats that you would find here in the Ozarks.
Yeah, explain what foraged foods is, if this is a new phrase for people.
Sure. So foraging is just going out into nature, into the forest, and collecting edible, fruits, leaves, roots, seeds, anything that you can eat, and then eating it. So that's foraging.
There's a little bit more to it than
fungi. People I think are most familiar with fungi. So your morel mushrooms are getting ready to pop up. Most people here in the Ozarks know what a morel is, and a lot of people have eaten them. So yeah, that's foraging.
So it's very earthy.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And is that kind of flavor of the moment, or has this been around for a while?
Just foraging in general?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's how we've eaten for thousands of years.
So you're sort of taking it back to basics, but making it fancy.
Yes, very fancy. I tell people all the time that they're like, so do you like cooking? Which is kind of an odd question to ask me. I tell them I have an unhealthy obsession with food. I just get so caught up in it and fascinated by it, and wondering, like, what can I do with this, foraged whatever that is really going to turn people onto it and make them want to eat it, because I think a lot of people, when you tell them we're going to go eat acorns, they're like,
right, what am I, a squirrel?
What do you mean eat acorns? But then I give them an acorn shortbread cookie or an acorn brioche bread, and they're like, wow, that's really good.
That's amazing.
So yeah, I get kind of infatuated with, like, well, what can I do with this to make it really good?
And what is your business called?
Wild Foods by Dyllan.
And people can find you online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the website is just wildfoodsbydyllan.com or Facebook page.
Dyllan.
Yes.
For those who are listening to this and not watching on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And so I'm sure you fill up very quickly, and this is probably the busy season once we get into the spring and summer.
Yep. We'll be a lot of different places. I'm going full-time with the business in August. Me and my wife, we're getting ready to have another baby, and I'm going to stay home with the boys and work the business. So, yeah.
And this is actually boy number 4.
Boy number 4. Yes.
So boy dad all the way.
Yes.
Are the kids interested in what you do?
Yeah, my 2 oldest, my 11-year-old and my 9-year-old, they love going out with me, hiking and, foraging, carrying bags of whatever we find.
Yeah.
So
right now you're looking at it going forward of just being kind of on the move as a chef, taking your food on the road has kind of worked for you.
Yep.
To different events and different sites and dinners and things like that. But the sky's the limit, right? Like, we could see a cookbook coming from Dyllan.
Yeah.
We could see all kinds of different things.
Yeah, the thing about recovery and maybe just life in general is that every single year brings something new. I don't know when you started this podcast, but if you would have said that you were doing a podcast some years ago, you'd have been like, what?
What's a podcast?
Yeah. Right. And so, I don't know what next year will bring. I mean, who knows? So.
But there's a lightness to it, isn't there? Being able to be open to all the opportunities
and
that are out there for you now.
Yes, I always try to stay open to whatever God has in store. Really, it's just like, man, I'm just going to listen, and when God speaks and tells me to do something, I'm going to do it. And when he says don't do it, I'm not going to do it. And it seems to have worked pretty good so far. So. And
you get to meet people all the time who are looking for that second chance for their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What is your message to them?
That there is hope. There's absolutely hope. But one of the the biggest realities is you've got to start taking the steps, no matter how small that looks like. You've got to start taking the steps in the right direction. I think that first step is maybe the hardest
right?
step to take.
Always getting started is always the hardest.
Yep.
You have no momentum to build on yet.
Right. You don't see that there could be something from this, you know. And even, you know, gosh, after 3 months, you still maybe don't see, like, maybe after 6 months, you're like, well, gosh, I'm still not seeing my kids, and, you know, my mom won't talk to me, or this or that. And it's like, yeah, but you've got to give it time, you know. Maybe things don't happen in 6 months. Maybe things don't happen in a year. You know, it took me 4.5 years to start seeing my second son again, you know, but I never gave up. Right. Yeah. It's like, and now, you know, he's with me every week. So
it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't take that time for granted.
No.
With him.
No, absolutely not. It's like, yeah, that's my son, you know. So
and what ages are 11's the oldest, and baby on the way?
11, 9, 19 months, and then the new one will be here in May. So,
get ready.
Yeah.
Well, we're excited for you. I'm so grateful that you were able to come in and talk with us today, and I just know that the right people are going to hear this and take the steps that they need to take.
Yeah. Yeah, and if I just could add real quick, you know, so still working for Victory Mission, managing the kitchen, now I have 2 to 3 guys that are going through the program in the kitchen with me, and so being able to disciple them and mentor them, and, you know, the guy that's taking over when I leave in August, he went through the program, and so it's kind of just this cool natural progression of guys coming in the program and then kind of following in my footsteps. And the plan with the business is to use those guys in the business so that they can see, hey, there's a career in this, you know, and you can take this to the next level, you know. So
it's amazing.
Yeah. Yep.
Congratulations, Dyllan.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
And thank you so much for joining us for this episode of At Home with Emily. Hey, if you are watching us here on YouTube, please be sure to like and subscribe so you can be notified for our next episode. We drop them every Wednesday. You can also follow Around the Ozarks on Instagram as well as Facebook, and you can head to aroundtheozarks.com and sign up there for our daily newsletter so you don't miss a thing. We'll see you next time.